you clarify? So there are three projects, no? The airport city, and the eco zone. Tama po ba 'yan?
Mr. President,
Tama po ba? Just to clarify yung stand ng NEDA, tama po ba there are three projects? The airport city, and then the eco zone.
yes, we have as you mentioned, the airport economic zone, which is the actual area, and then the
So airport city,
Airport
and
city.
then the eco zone.
yes, the eco zone. Actually, within the eco zone, meron pang ibang classification, yung free port, di ba?
Yes.
These are the different incentives that will be.
So just to clarify, to give a better picture of what we're talking about, yung sinasabing 2,500 hectares, yun yung airport city or yun yung airport alone?
Airport city lang yon because the actual economic zone is much bigger.
So how big is the airport compared to the airport city?
Actually, you mean the economic zone?
No,
It's
the,
about
no, the
55,000.
franchise kasi talks about airport vis-a-vis airport city, and then the eco zone in the areas specified that the airport city and airport are also in it. So I assume the airport is in the airport city, and then the airport city is in the eco zone. But can we clarify how big are these? So how big is the airport vis-a-vis the airport city?
Actually, the airport and the airport city, that's 2,500.
Okay. So
2,500
hectares.
hectares.
Okay.
Sabihin ko square meters, parang kulang.
Yeah. So loosely we can say that the airport and airport city is
Are the same.
The same. Kasi compared, for example, to NAIA, we're just talking about the runway, the terminal, and
Correct.
some support facilities. Pero yung ibang private na katabi, hindi nakasama sa airport yon, di ba? But etong 2,500 airport city. Okay. So in order to make what is the concept of the eco zone? Is it to help the airport, or the airport will help the eco zone? Help me understand why are we proposing an eco zone?
Mr. President, actually, it will be a mutual advantage to both. As we have used as an example earlier, the Shannon Freeport Zone in Ireland was the one and the airport was the one that spurred economic growth. Kasi nandyan na yung ease of transport, delivering goods, transporting people, beside the eco zone, which accepted manufacturing companies and other service-oriented companies within that area. So, tutulong talaga yung airport kasi mas madali yung transportation. Kunyari, meron silang mga semiconductors na gustong i-export kagad, hindi na kailangan ng mga trucking na malalaki para i-export o dalhin sa airport. At the same time, yung mga dumarating rin from the airport will be able to go to their place of work much easier. In fact, they don't really have to move around out of that eco zone if they didn't need to.
Yeah, I will agree with you that it will be mutually beneficial, but can we clarify? So the airport and airport city is private.
Yes, Mr. President, that's why that's why they had to go through the process of obtaining a franchise.
But the eco zone, what kind of animal is it? Is it it's public compared to private, right?
Yes, because it's under the authority of we don't call them the Baksesfa anymore, but we call them now the Buzz A.
Okay.
Beza.
BESA. So, but what's the nature? Is it a local government? Is it a GOCC? Is it a chartered corporation? Ano ang nature ng eco zone?
It will be like a GOCC, Mr. President.
Okay, and if it's mutually beneficial, meaning yung private makikinabang din dito sa government.
Siyempre, makikinabang because
Yes.
with the seed capital, there'll be infrastructure and there are also tax incentives. So, yes.
But Clark, would you have information kung punong-puno na ng... Is there any more room for locators in Clark?
You know what, Mr. President, I haven't really been to Clark recently, but I know that one of their proposals is even to have housing within Clark.
Yes. So that's
I suppose that there is still room for expansion.
That's my point Precisely, Madam Chair. That's why we need NEDA. Because we cannot say that the Bulacan Economic Zone will benefit the whole country without the study, because Clark has about 35,000 hectares owned by government. So between a private corporation, the airport city, and between Clark, which has an international airport, we should protect Clark. So let me now refer to a letter to the House of Representatives addressed to Yusek Paras from Carl Kendrick Chua. Sabi niya, however, we'd like to reiterate the policy of the Cabinet Economic Team as related to the Senate and the House of Representatives in a joint letter. The Department of Finance and the Department of Budget Management, NEDA, dated 2 August 29, the creation of a more tax-free zone does not always guarantee economic success, and that the communities even lose out if the giving of tax revenues exceed the perceived benefits of having eco zones. In 2017 alone, tax incentives amounted to 441 billion pesos, 2.8% of GDP or 17% of national government expenditures. Given the possible fiscal implication of the bill, we suggest that an assessment of the net benefits that will be derived from the ecozone and airport project be made at the minimum before considering any bill that proposes to create more ecozones. There should be a master plan and cost-benefit analysis to identify which areas in the country should benefit from the ecozones and which activities in these ecozones should be supported to contribute to economic growth of regions and the country. There's another letter addressed again to Jacinto Paras. So ito yung 2020, ito yung una. So my question is, between that time, 2020 and now, have we had a cost-benefit analysis, and do we have a master plan?
Mr. President, we know for a fact that during the past administration, they were actually trimming the, I guess, the incentives or shortening the incentives that were initially offered to locators in ecozones. That's why it was rationalized in the CREATE. And because of that, there's also been some concerns from the private sector that because of the sunset clause, a lot of them are already leaving the country or are looking for other places to relocate. In fact, there is a proposal from some sectors to actually amend the CREATE law to accommodate certain corrections so that we don't drive away these investors. So in answering your question, is there a study from the NEDA from that time for the cost-benefit analysis? Unfortunately, being transparent about it, they haven't submitted. But again, I always say, and this is in my opening interpellation, sometimes the hindrance to economic growth, ironically, is also the very agencies that are supposed to promote it because of the bottlenecks that they create. In fact, earlier on, there were already proposals to rehabilitate the NAIA Airport, but because of the studies na matagal nang hinihintay, hindi pa rin matuloy-tuloy. Kung nangyari yan noong 2017, sana by this time, maayos na yung airport natin. Kung titignan natin yung Bulacan area na paglalagyan nitong ecozone na ito, marami doon mga fish ponds. Ngayon, syempre, kailangan din naman natin ng fish pond, pero ang sinasabi natin din dito, yung value of the development, well, parang from zero yan eh. From zero, or sabihin na natin from 5 to astronomically more because high-value industries yung magre-relocate doon. So ito na lang for me, common sense. And of course, we need the guidance of NEDA in most cases, but at some point, we also have to exercise the discretionary our discretion as congressional members of the legislature to think of what we feel is better being proactive for our countrymen. So for me, no-brainer, wala dun ngayon. Malalagyan mo ng something, mas may value kaysa sa wala.
Mr. President, I would agree with the good sponsor that we cannot be solely reliant on NEDA. But we cannot guess whether it will be a good project or not economically. So Did the Senate or any expert in the Senate make their own study and have a cost benefit? We have tax experts dito sa Ways and Means. We have our LBRMO. So, while I will agree with you na common sense na hindi naman pwedeng we just rely on the agencies, pero common sense din naman, hindi naman tayo pwedeng manghula na kung sa Cavite natin to lalagay or sa Bataan or sa Pangasinan, it will be good because nga, may cost and may benefit eh. Whatever we do in Bulacan will affect Nueva Ecija, will affect Cebu, will affect affect Batangas. I'll point that out later on. So, going to June 10, 2022, mas explicit pa dito, given the possible fiscal implementations of proposal, NEDA is not inclined to support the bill. Furthermore, the establishment of the Bulacan Airport City Special Economic Zone should have a thorough assessment of its cost and benefit to make sure that it will be much beneficial to the government and the rest of the country. At the minimum, there should be a master plan for the proposed special economic zone that takes into account larger and regional, national and regional context. No? So in fact, hindi lang walang study, may opposition na ang NEDA, which goes to the latest letter, February 1, 2024. This comes from the NEDA of the present administration of President Marcos, Arsenio Balisacan, a known economist. Ang sabi niya, di ba, we recognize the importance of the Bulacan Ecozone. However, we'd like to reiterate the concerns raised by the President himself on the need to thoroughly study and assess the cost to ensure the establishment of the economic zone would be beneficial to the whole country. So, kuha ko po point nyo na obviously it will benefit Bulacan, but siguro that's the difference between the House and the Senate. If I was congressman ng Bulacan, I would be fighting for Bulacan. If I was congressman of Cavite, Batangas, I would be looking at the parochial. But that's why we have a Senate. We should balance all of this. I had the privilege of hearing the debates between Senator Serge Usmeña, Senator Ralph Recto, and Senator Angara in the viability, and Senator Enrile about CESA and APECO. And of course, Senator Pimentel, no? And it was very enlightening kasi nga, these were some instances where, on one hand, you have Senator Angara from Aurora and Senator Enrile from Cagayan. And if they didn't put that economic zone, kawawa talaga lugar nila. On the other hand, there had to be some balancing. But in this case, Bulacan is in Central Luzon, and Metro Manila and Central Luzon, if I'm not mistaken, has the best economic indicators. So going to the point, so are we saying we are proposing to pass this bill with no economic agency, think tank, or whatever, endorsing or giving us a study as a basis for us to agree or disagree on? So, in other words, sorry for this word, nanghuhula lang ba tayo dito?
Mr. President, I know that there are certain things that are being clarified, but is there any amendment in the statement of our gentleman from Taguig?
Depende po sa sagot. Kasi kung ang sagot nanghuhula lang tayo dito, we should not be talking about amendments. We should be talking about not passing the bill per se, because it's too big a project and a bill to rush, and then hindi tayo sure kung ano mangyayari. And you don't want this vetoed again, no? Which goes to my other question. Have we coordinated with the Presidential Legislative Liaison Office? Did they give an indication if the President is inclined to veto or to accept this bill?
Mr. President,
May I add to
if
that?
I may,
Okay.
if I may answer first, okay. When you're asking for a cost-benefit analysis, even with the best studies, these are just analysis and a prediction of what it can be based on what the proposal is. We're already saying that this proposal, for example, with the airport itself, will have how many runways, And then with the proposal of San Miguel, the transportation, the connectivity of the trains, etc. We've seen already the example of NAIA, where it's so congested around there because they weren't able to do the earlier planning. And with the gentleman mentioning, will this just benefit Bulacan? And this is a parochial measure that should be the job of Congress and not the Senate. I think that's, well, I find it quite, I don't know, maybe for me, I mean, you have Bulacan, but is it just restricted to passengers that are flying to the Bulacan area? Obviously not. The NAIA airport is in Pasay, but all of us benefit from that. That's why, Mr. President, obviously there's a far-reaching benefit. It doesn't mean that people only from Bulacan will be working there. People from the nearby provinces will also benefit from it. So, going back to your question, is there a study? Well, of course, in the committee hearings, we invited experts to give their opinions, and there are a lot of business leaders that are supportive of this, not just the ones from San Miguel. We also have the Senate Tax Office and the Senate Economic Planning Office that weighed in on this because unfortunately, even if we're here in the Senate, hindi natin mapilit yung mga departments na mag-submit na kayo. But then again, Senator Ralph Recto, who is now currently the Secretary of Finance, has said, I'm supportive of it. I think it will be good. So, Mr. President, that's what I can offer now.
Yes.
And
well, Mr. President, first my question kasi nanghuhula lang ba tayo? The answer apparently is yes. Because iba po yung we weigh in na nagbigay tayo ng opinion, iba yung may study tayo. So for example, if you say, are you in favor, Alan, of building the airport in the Laguna Lake? I'm in favor, taga-Tagig ako eh. I'm in favor sa Bulacan, taga-Bulacan din kami. Diba? But if you ask me, is that an expert opinion? Do you have a study? Wala. Second point, the good sponsor is arguing for the airport. Wala na tayong tanong sa airport. Batas na yon, and we all want that. We're talking about the ecozone, not the airport. There is a study for the airport, regardless kung ano stand ng ibang agencies, may franchise na yung airport eh. Okay na yon. Okay na yung airport city, 2,500 hectares. And it's not true that yung problema sa NAIA, Bulacan lang ang sagot because Clark Airport is also there and it's a beautiful airport, and again, you have 35,000 hectares na gobyerno may-ari. So, ang question natin dito, saan dapat kumiling ang gobyerno? Sa private or sa public? And kung sasabihin natin, pareho naman itong pwedeng public dahil yung ecozone public, kaya tayo humihingi ng study. What study can we agree on or dispute that will say that there is a probability na successful tong ecozone? We do this with everything. So when we have proposals here in Senate, we never excuse that. I mean, barangay lang ng Taguig, hindi natin mapasa-pasa dito dahil yung DNR kulang sa certification eh. 'Di ba? So state university lang pag may kulang na isang certification sa professor or whatever. We don't say it's our prerogative. We demand for them to submit it to make sure. So let me ask this question. Kaninong proposal ba tong ecozone? Is it San Miguel's proposal? Is it a proposal of a business group? Is it a proposal of legislators? Of course, my sponsor, but sinong nagpro-propose nito?
For the record,
Well,
I'd like to put that I'm the principal author of this here.
No question about that, Mr. Senate President. The reason why I'm asking sino ang original proponent nito, because usually, the burden of showing that it is beneficial is the original proponent. So like, I'm handling some of the BCDA amendments, but the proponent is BCDA. I'm just going to, and meron author dito. So I'm not questioning, I'm not even deciding whether it's a good or bad project. I'm just saying, I'm trying to search who is standing up saying that scientifically, this is a good project, rather than us guessing and saying, kasi hindi naman po totoo na lahat ng ecozone did well eh. There were ecozones who did not do well. Plus, we have to protect Clark. Diba? That's why I'm asking, sino bang proponent nito? Dahil dapat yung proponent, is not only here, but will provide all of this. I mean, even the projects ng China na regalo or grant, humingi tayo ng feasibility studies eh.
Mr. President, wait. First of all, hindi tayo nanghuhula dito. Nagkaroon tayo ng ilang committee hearing and we invited experts. I wish also the gentleman from Taguig had attended. There is a study of 130.9 billion in revenue or 0.5% of GDP and 1.2 million jobs derived from this. So, pag sinabi niya, hindi na naman yan sure eh. Yan lang yung sinasabi nila eh. Ganun din naman eh, kahit na NEDA rin pang nang nagbigay nito. These are also done by economists that submitted to our committee during our deliberations, and we took matter into our hands because it's taking for government, again, dragging their feet from submitting. Now, number two, during the interpellations, it's also very difficult. When we spoke actually to Senator Recto, he said, he confirmed that it is hard to calculate the exact cost because there's nothing there yet. In fact, parang, hindi bali kung meron na nga doon pero magdadagdag ng improvements doon. So, there's no big taxpayer in the area. So, kung sino man ang maglalagay doon, biglang magkakaroon ng revenue from that. I understand also the concern and I appreciate it na, okay, why don't we protect Clark? Because that's a government establishment. But the government will also invest here. But it doesn't mean na pabayaan natin yung public sector, yung private sector, yung public lang ang aanuhin natin. Kahit na merong deficiency. Nakikita naman natin, Mr. President, na yung NAIA, kahit na nandyan yung Clark, yung mga airline mismo, hindi pa nga nila sinasabi na okay, mas gusto pa rin nila pumunta dito sa NAIA for some reason because of the proximity to the National Capital Region. That's why you have to keep reinventing yourself. That's why Clark is adding other things to entice more people to go there. So it's really the responsibility now of the biggest investors in the private sector. Let me remind also our colleagues here that in the board of BEZA, there will be a representative from the national government, NEDA, DOTR, the DOF will be there. In other eco zones, of course, they failed because there are no investors. But here, there's already an investor. We know that San Miguel is very motivated to invest here because of the airport franchise that they have.
Mr. President, let me, refresh the chairperson's memory. Sabi niya kasi we had hearings here. You had one hearing. And that hearing lasted 2 hours. Actually, 1 hour and 44 minutes and 1 hour 44.5 minutes. It started at 10 a.m. It adjourned at 11:44 a.m. So it's not true that very comprehensive ang ating discussions.
Although for the
Mr.
record,
President,
but
this
for
is
the-
already a bill that was discussed beforehand.
Yeah, in other words, I was
And
about
that's why
to say,
we
this is
were
the second round.
concentrating on the vetoed provisions.
Yes, I'm not yet finished, Madam. I was referring to, there's a difference between consultations that we're asking everyone and studies. You know, I had the privilege of being in the cabinet, and the Foreign Affairs Department always negotiates this. And in whether it was, I forgot what country na ang gusto ng DOE natin, maglagay tayo dito ng para sa liquefied fuel, no? Lahat yan may studies. Or let me say it this way. Did we approve CESA, APECO, AFAB without NEDA? Di ba lahat yun may NEDA? I was here din eh. Narinig ko yung ano doon eh, yung debate noon eh. Even with the NEDA, may nag-argue na hindi dapat.
Mr. President, we will check our records about the deliberations of those others with regards to the submissions of NEDA. But again, all the plans here will be either approved or not by the Office of the President. The plans of the BEZA will be submitted also for approval. Now, Mr. President, the difference is in those other eco zones, it's very rare that you have also other motivated investors, private investors, that will also take a risk on that area where now is also thirsting for investments. So, Mr. President, kahit na sabihin mo highly urbanized na yung Bulacan, syempre, that's the incentive for the investor. It is already sort of urbanized, but still has a lot of room for development. Hindi naman, syempre, there's no 100% altruism na they'll go to a far away area and develop there. It will take a lot of subsidy from the government. That's why they chose this, because they know it will be profitable, but at the same time, it will also serve in public service, because obviously, NAIA is congested. We have Clark, and the more airports, actually, in the United States, every few, I don't know how many airports, every few, not few, but maybe every less than 100 miles meron. In LA, you have the LAX, and then you have another airport, I think it's called the Bob Hope Airport.
Yes.
And
In Burbank Airport.
the Burbank Airport. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Burbank Airport. And then you have other airports for different functions. Mr. President, no, I respect the concern of our colleague, and if you would like to object to this, I can't do anything. At least for the record, he has signified his objection. But we're at the period already that if he has something to amend, then we can accept or maybe.
Yeah, we are in the
reject.
period without prejudice to questions, Mr. President, precisely because this is a one-of-a-kind special economic zone, because it introduces a lot of new things. But let me go back to what the good lady senator sponsor was discussing. She was discussing again the airport. Wala namang question na willing ang San Miguel na mag-invest sa airport. And I don't know if she's aware, if you are aware, Madam Chair, Mr. Senate President, isa yun sa sinabi sa San Miguel Corporation when they proposed the airport. If you want to propose an airport there, but since we have Clark, kailangan walang special favors, walang additional, and you cannot have benefits better than Clark, because it is anti-graph for us, and we're talking about the executive department, it is anti-graph for us to give something special to the private when we have to protect the public. That's why.
Mr. President, that there's equality in the law. We have no extra benefits or
No.
incentives here.
By
that was not given to
Mr.
Clark.
President, let me finish. That's why I'm saying, that's why I'm asking, and I'm thinking, and I'm trying to understand whether this eco zone is tailored for this airport. Because the good chairperson keeps saying that may mag-i-invest kasi dito may nag-i-invest nga sa Clark yung gobyerno nga ng Pilipinas Di ba? So it's not an argument to make the economic zone because ang San Miguel is investing in the airport. We're supporting San Miguel. We want that airport to work where they're expropriating left and right. We're helping them with the infrastructure. Walang question doon. Ang basic first question, what is our scientific basis? What is the economic studies? Who are the experts who came in with a study, not with an opinion, in saying that maganda tong economic zone na to? Because if it doesn't, then 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, 20 years, they'll look back at the Senate and say, ba't nyo kasi ni-rush Pwede nyo namang hintayin yung study. So, which I'll go to my next question. The franchise allows the airport to have 12 years to be built. So why are we rushing the eco zone
If I may,
kung wala pa naman yung
Mr. President,
airport?
alam mo ang problema sa ating bansa, sa sobrang bagal, dahil palaging may pinoprotektahan na ganito, dahil, teka tayo, pag-aralan natin yan. Nakita na nga natin, puro fish pond na nga yung nandun. At yung mismong local government, ang gusto na ring magkaroon ng investment doon sa
I want to-
sa kanilang lugar. And number two, yung sinasabi na, yung Clark, gobyernong gumagastos, mabuti nga ito hindi out of pocket ng gobyerno.
That's
Iba,
not true,
kung meron
Mr.
man,
President. That's not true. Government will be spending
yes,
for this.
government will, at the discretion of Congress, if we have money to put it in the GAA. But that does not scare away investors for as long as we are already approving
Mr.
this
President,
economic
you do
zone.
not know that for a fact because you do not have a study. Senator Grace
Even if
po
you have a
is not
study,
NEDA.
no,
Wait,
I
The
know.
study doesn't guarantee,
may
but
I-
the
may I
study...
Excuse
interject?
me, Mr. President, even if I'm not from NEDA, I think it's just common sense.
Yes,